Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Career Talks podcast. I'm your host each and every week, Orlando Haynes. Super excited for the phenomenal guests that I bring to you each week that will share amazing content for your career and your life, actually. But before we dive in, I just want to share that this episode is sponsored by the Career Accelerator Planner. It's a planner that I put together with my partner, Karen Turner, that tracks your projects, performance, and value in corporate America for you to document your wins. So anytime you're in a career transition or you're going for a conversation around merit increase, promotions, things like that, you have documented the performance you've brought to that table each and every time. So definitely you don't want to walk away from an opportunity or from an organization and leaving all your intellectual, potential in that cubicle or office from which you transition from. So definitely go ahead and grab a copy. It's at the careeracceleratorplanner.com. Again, that's careeracceleratorplanner.com. So let's jump right into it. I have an amazing guest. You've seen the flyer. I say that every week. She is celebrating 5 years with LinkedIn as a content manager. So congratulations to Alma for that as well. But I want to share this. Some folks may not know. She's going to be surprised that I'm saying this. She has a vocal range that you would not believe. I did a little research, jumped into her LinkedIn profile, which led me to several links. And she's an award-winning actress as well. But yeah, I believe it, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong. She can do certain animated voices, but she has incredible talent. She's looking like, oh my God, why did you say that? But without further ado, let me bring this young lady on, Miss Alma Jira Pratt. How are you?
Hi, Orlando. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Almira. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming in from LinkedIn itself. So, and I know we have limited time, so I want to jump right to this. Was I wrong in that with the vocal range that you have?
Yeah. I'm a trained actor. That was sort of my first,
Mhm.
my first career, and I still do it. Actually, just got booked on something, so I'll be
Nice.
filming in the next couple of weeks, and it'll air in February. So stay tuned on my LinkedIn. I'll definitely post a link. But yeah, trained actor, theater trained, and I still do a lot of film and television and voiceover animation work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely find the link if you can find. I'll find the link for you folks and put it in there. But when I listened to it weeks ago, I was like, "Is this?" I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "Whoa!" It's like, did I hear it in something that I didn't recognize the voice? But
Yeah,
yeah,
it makes story time with my kids really fun.
I bet it does. They're like, "Wait, mommy, is that you?" Amazing, amazing. So,
Yeah.
with the topic we're talking about, right? It kind of goes fitting with your background because you have such an eclectic background. Share with us quickly, how did you get into acting, then transition into the corporate world, and then maintaining that with explore, explode, and execute?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I knew I wanted to be an actor since I was a kid. I got an agent when I was 17, and so have been kind of doing this professionally for more than 20 years. And so but I also really loved like strategy and business development and entrepreneurship. That's in my blood, like for generations. And so as I was exploring acting, it's one of those careers where you have to be doing other things to really make a career out of it, because those jobs where you book, it's like 10% bookings. I probably
Mm,
auditioned for over 2,000 projects, and it's again a 10% booking. So in between, I would do everything from PR to events to producing and directing. And one of the things that I absolutely loved was the communication aspect of acting. So, how do you connect with yourself? How do you connect with your scene partners, with the audience? How do you develop these characters and really know who you are, so that you can take on a character, build a character, and share that with the world, but still know who you are to come back to
mm.
after you've let that character go. And so I then explored a second career. I went back to school and got a degree in communications here in Atlanta, Georgia, and worked in PR, and spent time media training business executives and CEOs, and coming up with their crisis communications plans and really coaching them on their thought leadership and content creation. And so that's sort of what then brought me to LinkedIn Learning because I have such a huge passion for learning and careers and how people can pivot and really build a career that's purposeful based on their passions. So because I felt like I had done that, I really wanted to use what I loved about identify and then use what I loved about acting in a career that would make me consistent money as well. Um, but serve in a way that would help people in their careers, and help their businesses grow as well. So that was sort of my trajectory and sort of how I've pivoted into different areas. But I really don't see it as pivoting. I see it as, hey, Dan Roth, I see it really as building on our careers, right? I don't see our careers as these like, people will say, oh, it's a ladder or it's a jungle gym. It's
Mm,
really layers, right? And every time you have an experience, it's another layer that you're adding to your career. And you kind of how you connect those layers is really sort of where you are in your career path at that moment, right? In different stages of our lives. So that's sort of how I look at it.
got it. So this is kind of a formula because we talked prior to the explore, what is
Yeah.
it? I'm sorry, explore that and
Explore,
execute
execute,
and
excel.
excel. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a formula you live by.
Yeah.
Where did you formulate that? Was that in your acting process and career developing that? So where did that just come from for you? Like, hey, this is the mantra I'm going to set for myself and how I live my life.
Yeah, so this really came from my work here at LinkedIn Learning.
Mm,
So I'm a content manager. There's a few of us here at LinkedIn Learning who are content managers, and we have different topic areas. And so over the past 5 years, well, really four and a half up until this past year, which I've pivoted my topic a little bit, but I've focused on career and communications courses. So I've worked on, with dozens of top voices and experts in this area, career coaches on hundreds of courses. I think I'm at like 250 courses that I've
wow.
published in our library. And so coming up with those courses and working with these experts, my our role as content managers is to come up with the strategy of what courses do we need in the library for those topics. And so we look at different data like our economic graphs data, we look at workforce trends and reports, and then really relying on those experts to say, what are you seeing out in the field, and building our strategy and our roadmaps around that. So as I've been building out this curriculum, essentially,
Hmm.
I'm talking to these experts. I'm looking at, okay, when you look at the job search process, what are the things that people need to do? And when I started mapping out this curriculum when I first started, it was apparent to me that there is a job search process. And we know most of these, right? You find a job, you create your resume, you write your cover letter, you apply, you interview, and then you negotiate your salary. But there's a lot more in that. And I think if we're intentional and we really, for me, I had to be because I was creating a roadmap and a curriculum. So to be really intentional about what are these steps in the process and what are the really important ones that we need to make sure that we hit so that when someone goes to LinkedIn Learning to, take a course or a learning path to, create their career roadmap, they have everything they need. So explore, execute, and excel really came from the process of looking at all of those steps from information that I've learned from all of these amazing instructors that I've worked with and all of the research that and insights that I've learned
Hmm.
over the past 5 years. And it really boils down to, okay, you've got your explore section, and I'll kind of go through each one.
Yeah.
So explore is really around your career planning phase. So taking those self assessments, looking at possible career paths, potentially, having informational interviews for that research. But it's really that research and planning phase, and then coming up with the action plan. Identifying your resources, and then tactically, then I'll go in deeper into, okay, in those things, what are the specific things? So are you pivoting, are you volunteering, are you looking for internships, are you looking for informational interviews, or what are your goals really, essentially? So it's this explore is really this career planning. You're coming
Hmm.
up with your plan, you're identifying who you are, what you want, what kind of lifestyle you want, and then you're coming up with that like tactical plan with your smart goals of, okay, how do you actually execute this? And with the execute part, it's really around personal branding, which would include your resume, your profile, your other social platforms. So personal branding, networking, which could be informational interviews, it could be discovering your target companies and reaching out to people. And then it's job seeking. So actually finding those specific jobs. So where do you go when you find those jobs? Are you going to places like Flex Jobs because you want a flexible career? Or are you going to LinkedIn because you want a tech job? And so you're really hitting Microsoft or, those types of things. So where are you finding those jobs? There's things like the hidden job market as well. So we cover that. And then applying, which is also part of executing. So how do you apply? Prepping for your interview, taking those interviews. They could be internal interviews or external interviews, covering those common questions, um, etiquette, and then after the interview. And then the last part of execute is job negotiation. So that's really negotiating your salary and your compensation, understanding your compensation and benefits. So just to kind of recap so far, explore is your career
Mhm.
planning phase and research. Execute is personal branding, networking, job seeking, and job negotiation. And then excel is once you've got the job, where do you go from here? How do
Right.
you onboard it successfully? And then how do you excel? I love, love, love your career planner because that falls into the excel part of it. So that you're not just, once you get that job, you're kind of still also always in that
Yeah.
explore, research, planning phase, right? Because you
Absolutely.
want to be reflecting, you want to be writing down your wins, you want to be writing down the skills that you're using that you enjoy, so that you're kind of already taking those first steps to what is your next step after that. So it's this cycle, and you keep kind of going through that. But yeah, the Excel part is, I think, also really important. It's that professional development, personal effectiveness. So things like communication, working with your manager, entrepreneurship, and managing up, all those kinds of things.
I love that because you're giving basically an A to Z roadmap
Yeah.
from regardless of where you're at in your career, because you can jump in midway and say, okay, here's what I need to brush up on because the market has changed, the application process has changed. Where are you seeing the biggest gaps for job seekers now throughout that roadmap that you've laid out in your courses?
Yeah. I would say it's interesting because I would say that in each section, there are gaps that people are missing. So, but the biggest missed opportunity is that Excel phase. When you're in your current job, whether it's working or
Mm,
it's not working, taking that time to really reflect and using that as an opportunity to explore and figure out what are the skills that you're using that you like or that you don't like. What are the jobs that are out there that you could potentially use your current position to build on. So for instance, in my last company, I was at a PR agency that was a flat structure, which meant that it it was tough, it was challenging because it was agency, but it also gave me an open playing field to develop any of the skills that I really wanted. And so I kind of took on all sorts. I said yes to everything. I took on all sorts of random things so that I could say, do I like this or not? Yes or no. And then I had a great list of the things that I really enjoyed, and I could say, here's where I need to develop more, and then I could take on more opportunities within the company to, or even volunteering outside of the company to build on those skills. So, for instance, once I had identified, I was still at the company, once I identified LinkedIn Learning as a potential next step because I knew I wanted a
mhm.
flexible career. One of the things that I knew that I wanted to practice was acquisition, and understanding contracts. And so I kind of took on more of that and learned more of that in my current role.
Got it. So, if I understanding, you're saying, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that we should look for because you kept saying skills, not new opportunities, but seek out additional skills once you're onboarded that can lead to a new opportunity. So that's a different viewpoint, saying, hey, I want to be manager, but if becoming manager doesn't produce new skills, it just creates a bigger income and more responsibilities. But if you do a lateral promotion, which a lot of folks I think we kind of overlook, there's new skill sets, data, whatever, anything like that that you acquire. So that's good. I think that's a
Absolutely.
different approach for sure when you're saying look for new skills within the organization that you can acquire. I love that.
100%. 100%. And LinkedIn, you'll hear, on this platform, everyone, it's always skills first. And I
Mm,
think we're moving towards a skills first hiring model. We've done some things here at LinkedIn, and we've worked with other companies to really promote that, encourage companies to hire based on skills versus experiences and education and things that aren't necessarily equitable. So to create a more equitable workforce, we need to be hiring based on skills. And more importantly, as an individual, to create a career that is sustainable, that is purposeful, and that brings you
mhm.
joy every day, it needs to be based on the skills that you enjoy using.
So let's speak to real quick employers, because that's a phenomenal point. Because I see the articles happening, I hear certain CEOs and in interviews saying they are switching their model to a skill based hire. But for those that are still kind of in their antiquated way, versus it's more about their credentials, right, so to speak. From an explore standpoint, how can employers begin to explore and changing that model so they can start to look at it from a skill based hire? What are some of the
Yes.
good principles that you've come across?
Yeah, one of the things that we've sort of encouraged companies when we've started, working with them on integrating this model is starting out with certain roles. So identifying what roles in your organization require you to have a certain level of education. What roles require, right? Like, I mean, if you're doing
Hmm.
accounting and that type of work, there's certain level of education that and credits that you need, right? But are there, strategic roles or community building roles, or what are the roles within your organization that don't necessarily require you to have certain, education, a certain level of education, or that could be self-taught.
Hmm.
So, for instance, even CPA, I think you can do a lot of credits online, but can you test your skills in Excel? Can you test your skills in, Premiere Pro? All of those things can be tested. If you've got those skills, you've got those skills. It doesn't matter where you learned them from. So I think when you look at your organization, first identify, what are the roles that are essential to have like an actual paper degree, or and then ask yourself, why is there, is it an Excel, is it a business course because you want to have a business degree because you want them to have, skills in Excel, or then you can say, okay, no, we just need them to have these certain skills. So it's
Yeah.
really looking at each role and the critical skills that role requires first, and then saying, okay, like according to compliance and these sort of matters, what do we actually need people to have credentials for?
And a lot of that stuff you can actually get through LinkedIn Learning. So,
Right.
right, so you don't have to pay a ton of money at colleges. You can get the advanced Excel skills, etc. So, um, if you were to weight, explore, execute, and excel, whether it's 33% apiece, what would you say the most crucial folks should be spending their time in? Is it
Explore.
explore?
Explore,
And,
yeah, absolutely. And I say that again just to kind of maybe be a broken record, but I feel like this is the area where people skip over the most
mhm,
because it is so hard for a lot of people to do that self reflection. We need
got it.
time, we need focus. And I mean, I'm a working mom. I rarely get that type of, that level of just space and quiet to really reflect on, who am I? Who am I in my, and what do I enjoy? What do I like? And just reflecting on your whole career. And so I think that is the place where it takes a lot of discipline. And so it's more challenging, but I do think that it is so much more rewarding because you're really setting the foundation to build a sustainable, purposeful career.
Now, do you come across any data since the pandemic, or the recent, massive layoffs that show folks are still or diving into that explorers piece more, or they're just, pivoting, trying to get back to work as quick as possible for, financial stability?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's been a lot. I think the pandemic really allowed people to slow down and also put things into perspective, right?
Hmm.
So just by nature of exactly what I said around time, right?
Yep.
The pandemic forced people to take the time, and all of a sudden, all of the noise of the things that you need to do and the places you need to go died down. People had that time to really reflect. And that's why you see all of these people pivoting, because they're saying, hold on a second, I've just been lost in this day to day, go, 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 go. Now I'm slowing down and realizing, oh, I actually want this different lifestyle. I actually want
Hmm.
a flexible job, or I actually want to work in office, or I want to work from home, or whatever it may be. We definitely saw a lot of people pivoting. People, we had, layoffs, we had people quitting, we had people pivoting, we had people going back to work. So there was a lot of change, and there will continue to be change. But I do think that a lot of people had more time to reflect. And then, of course, there was also, you know, a number of other people who, and I will say that one of our top courses has always been creating a career plan,
Hmm.
with Dr. Chaz Austin. And that course just proves that people are taking the time to plan their careers. They know that they want to, but I think there's a bit of mystery of how to do that. How do you
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
do that? But of course, there's going to be people who, um, they may have been forced to out of work. And there's a real emotion around that. And there is a sense of panic. So figuring out how through that emotion of being, like desperate for a job,
Yeah.
may need to make an income. How do you work through that and not just pick up the first thing you see? Or maybe you pick up the first thing you see, but while you're doing that and you need to take that job, you're still in the back of your mind thinking about the explore and the planning and doing that self work. And like I said, that's an ongoing thing. No matter what stage you're in, if you have a job already, you're always in that. I'm super happy in my job, but I'm always still in that explore and self-reflection phase.
That's awesome. What are you seeing now? What trends are you seeing now in the market that are coming that the average job seeker is just not aware of, that we need to be aware of when it comes to finding our next career in 2023?
Yeah. I think there's definitely a lot more, um, well, in addition to skills-based hiring, so focusing on your skills and
Hmm.
highlighting your skills, I think we're seeing a lot more in AI, and we're seeing these other, industries emerging. And so industry need and demand are changing. So I actually recommend people go to the LinkedIn Economic Graphs page. I can pull that up and share the link. But we have, if you just search economic graphs, for LinkedIn, you'll see that there's a lot of different reports that show what are the workforce trends, what are the industries that are emerging, and where are sort of the jobs. And then even if you're looking on the job section in LinkedIn, you'll see there are certain areas that tend to peak at certain times and others that don't. So in the middle of the pandemic, a lot of sales jobs went down, recruiting jobs went down. Now we're starting to see those pick up a little bit more, um, as well as like AI and tech jobs as well. I also think I'm personally just in my community and network on LinkedIn seeing a
Hmm.
lot more people moving into entrepreneurship and creating businesses, but also building businesses on creation. So, creating content as well and working with brands and brand partnerships. So that's really interesting and fascinating to me. So yeah, I would say
That's good.
definitely go to the economic graphs data though.
Got it. Will do. So a lot of folks, they can see your profile. It says content manager, but I don't think they know how impactful you are when it comes to the nano learning that's recently, become a crave for everyone, which is phenomenal. So talk to us about uh, directly how you impact that information, so we can take it in bits and pieces,
Yeah.
and implement.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just at the beginning of the pandemic, learning went up, and then of course as things start to get back into motion and people are back to work, we are we saw that people want to learn. People do want to learn. They want to keep, developing their skills, but there's a sort of time limitation. And so, my goal with this program is really to encourage and empower people into a habit of learning, and 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 it's really, I think it starts with little bits every day, right? So when we think about especially the next generation of learners, they're used to TikTok. They're used to, the
Hmm.
short information, and they love learning. We've seen that from our research. But there's so much noise on these other platforms. There's noise on, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. So you could spend 2 hours on one of these platforms and maybe find two or three videos that were impactful to your life and career.
Right.
What the goal of this program is to remove that noise and allow people to learn with focused content the way we do all of our courses. We have 20,000 courses in the library, but with Nano Learning, it really takes all of that information, and I collaborate with other content managers who are creating these larger roadmaps and really diving into these industries and collaborating with them and the experts to say, okay, what are the sort of key things that people need to know to kind of dive into a particular industry or topic area, and then how can we kind of give them that introduction with Nano Learning. So Nano Learning is short form content, so it's,
Hmm.
30 to 60-second videos. There's about 10 videos in each course, but you can watch any video on its own, but it's really just learning in very short amounts of time. So you could do it when you're on the go. You could do it if you're waiting for the bus, or you're, whatever you're doing. You can create that habit of opening up the LinkedIn app and watching
Hmm.
a short video and learning something. And then if you see something that you enjoy, there's always longer form courses for that.
So how are you extracting that? Is that you're taking from existing instructors and seeing what are their top performing pieces are, and then having them repurpose it in shorter form, or having them recreate brand new material in shorter form?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. So it's a licensing program, but we're working with instructors in the same way that we do with our regular courses, where
Hmm.
people who are already creating this highly valuable informational instructional content, that we're bringing that into the platform again to have it be highlighted in a place where people can learn without that noise. But it is still instructional. So still, for me, using instructional design principles to look at a course and say, what is the learning outcome in this video? In
Hmm.
this 90-second or 30-second video, what will the learner be able to do after watching this video, and why is it important? And so those two questions are what I start with when I look at every video. And sometimes the videos have it and sometimes they don't, but they're almost there. And so I'll collaborate with the instructor on, okay, how can we reframe this video, or how can we restructure this course so that um, there's a real learning goal that will be achieved here.
And I noticed the for folks who do watch the Nano, I watch quite a few of them. It's a it's a different setup now, because you're some folks are just recording it right from their phone, or and then sending that information in versus being in studio, or has that become a mix too based on availability?
Yeah, no, it's fully produced. The Nano Learning content is all fully produced by the instructors themselves. So it's, essentially user generated content that we're licensing and bringing into the platform. And I think this is really important because there is one, we're just able to do it more quickly, and people don't
Yep.
need to come into the studio. But I think it's really important to really highlight the instructors as their own sort of creators, and they're already teaching to their audience. They understand their audience and the way they learn, and a lot of them are really great at producing their own content. But I really feel like doing it in this way adds another layer of authenticity, where the learners are able to connect really quickly to the instructor. And I think that's a great way to intro new learners into that habit of learning. If we automatically dive into a 30-minute course where it's very structured, you've got these slides and it sort of takes you through a consistent rhythm, it's a little bit harder. But once we have sort of these dynamics to kind of train your brain into learning
Hmm.
information in a creative way, and I think there's a balance, and we do a great job of, finding ways to create courses in studio. We have, teams of producers and directors and camera people and lighting people and audio people who are, a lot of them are, from Hollywood. They're fantastic and creative. And I think they do a really great job of creating
Oh,
even long form courses that could be on anything from Excel to photography to, cybersecurity that are still engaging. Um, uh, but I love just working with instructors who also are interested in creating their own, in their own content.
great. And before we come to a close, one last question is for 2023. Where should job seekers really start to leverage LinkedIn? Like, in what ways that we're missing or we're not seeing that you can educate us on?
Yeah, I think it would be a big tie between building your skills and developing your network. Um, and when I say your network, it's really about relationship building. So we talked a lot about skills already, but I'll just sort of share a little bit of my perspective on relationship building.
Mhm.
We think about networking as we want to connect with people for, for our own benefit, for, we want that to use them to get here, or this, I'm going to reach out to this person so they can help me do this. But relationships are mutually beneficial and they're two-way. So when you're reaching out to somebody or when you're connecting with people, I think being intentional, and all of this goes back to being intentional around your career development, your networking, it's all about being intentional. And I think creating a community for yourself with, with intention
Mhm.
is really important. So thinking about why you want to connect with somebody, what you can offer them, and then what your ask is, and then being really transparent about that as well. So I think that's sort of the first step, but really being intentional around what kind of community you want to create for yourself, what network, and it goes back to the explore of really understanding who you are, what you love, what you want to do, and then creating a community. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time and other people's time.
Absolutely, that's true. Last question for, well, second to
Yeah,
last. I keep saying that, but
that's okay.
um, what gets you going every day? Right? You said earlier that you love what you do. Why?
Yeah, I think it's really about, you know, creating opportunities for people
Mhm.
to learn, but also creating opportunities for the instructors and the creators to share their knowledge. LinkedIn is a knowledge marketplace, and I think it's so amazing that we have so many incredibly talented, insightful people. And
Mhm.
I think one of the quotes from one of our focus groups around Nanolearning was that it doesn't necessarily matter the name or the how accomplished the person is. If they've got a really valuable tip, then I'm going to listen to that and take that into consideration. And I think that's what the great thing about LinkedIn is that you can have somebody who's 19 and just started their own vending machine business,
Yep.
sharing incredible career advice, and then somebody who's also 80 and has been the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So it's, I think, really tapping into that knowledge marketplace and empowering people to share their insights and what they're learning, and encourage each other to be curious and continue learning. I learn something every day, and I also try to share something every day to pay it forward. And that is really sort of what drives this whole cycle for me.
And I wonder if that's because you made a good point. I wonder if that's a big misconception, that in this creator economy that folks look at LinkedIn and say, oh, this, I don't have the 15, 20 years of experience to go out and say, put myself out there to say, hey, here's a great tip. But to your point, you can be, 19 and start a new, business, and you've learned so much in that year of entrepreneurship that you can share and add value. And I think it's great coming from you being on the inside and seeing that. Simply put, there's if you have valuable content, put it out there. Put it
Yeah.
out there. There's people that are willing to listen. So,
Yeah. Even
what's
if it's a
next?
failure,
Okay,
even if it's a
yeah.
failure, we learn a lot from our failures, and I think we're seeing more of that. We're seeing more people sharing, personal stories and
Hmm.
really vulnerable posts on LinkedIn, and it's all tied back to career and life and how we move forward. And I really like that. I was an early adopter of LinkedIn. I think I joined when it like first came out, and I'm Canadian, so when it first came out in Canada, this must have been like 2007 or something. But I just love the way the platform has evolved and how things can be vulnerable yet still relate back to my career and my life.
Love it. So you alluded to a new project coming on the acting side. So what's next for you, 2023?
Well, I wanted to sort of take my own advice and share more of what I've been learning. I
Mhm.
started posting regularly on LinkedIn around everything that I've learned around communication, and I'd share a lot of acting tips for business professionals around character development, character building, and self-reflection. And I want to do more of that. So that's something that I'm putting out there as a goal for me, to also create video content and share what I'm learning. It's challenging. It's challenging to think about that type of content, to be vulnerable, to put it out there. But the number of messages that I get from people to say, "Wow, thank you so much for sharing that," it's incredible. It's such an incredible feeling. So I'm going to take my own advice and do that. Um, and and I'm still, I'm acting will always be part of me. I think I'll be doing it till I'm, 85. It's just something that's in me. So I'll always be auditioning and working on different creative projects. Um, and then I think just continuing to keep, focusing in. It's that constant work of finding ways to be disciplined in moments of self-reflection and focus. Because for me, as a working mom of two with passions and interests, I
Mhm.
also need to create my own boundaries, and that means being finding those productivity hacks and just being really disciplined with my time. I think all of us can relate to that, but I'm not very good at it.
Yeah, we all got room to improve. That's the biggest room, right?
Yeah.
So, Almira, I appreciate you so much for coming on, accepting the invitation to
Thank
be on the
you.
podcast, sharing your expertise from the inside, which is crucial. So, folks, who if you're not following Almira, absolutely do so. We're going to hold her accountable. She said she's going to produce some more. She's going to start putting more stuff out there. And being a content manager, it's going to be valuable. So, again, thank you for your time and your expertise and your grace on the show. I appreciate you so much. I'm gonna close this out with a quick video, and then we're off to the next
Thank
next
you.
thing. All
Thank you
right,
for
bye bye.
having me. Bye.